everyone, welcome back to Fraud on the Telly. With the newest season of Stranger Things out, Vecna has become quite the household name. That's why in today's video, we will be answering the question, just who is Vecna the Whispered One? In order to do so, we're going to be breaking down everything we know about this big, bad, evil guy from D&D Forgotten Realms lore and just D&D lore in general, as well as Critical Role lore. That being said, in this video, there will be minor spoilers for Stranger Things Season 4, Critical Role Campaign 1, as well as just kind of general D&D Forgotten Realms lore. As we answer the question, just who is Vecna? As always, if you enjoyed the video or learned something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let's just get right into it, shall we? According to Forgotten Realms lore, Vecna was once a normal human, or possibly a half-elf. Over his young years, he would discover an aptitude for magic, and by adulthood would wield the powers of an archmage. It is said that at some point in his life, Vecna became concerned and obsessed with his own mortality. Some say this was spurred on by the death of his mother, others believing that the strive for immortality is the curse that all wizards must bear. After many years of searching and delving deep into necromantic magic, Vecna would complete his transformation from a mortal man to a lich, a being of undead necromantic power. There are many theories as to how Vecna achieved lichdom, one stating that the demon prince Orcus taught him the secrets of undeath. Another states that he experimented on hundreds of mortals, eventually channeling enough power into his body, transforming himself into this undead nightmare. Regardless of how it came to be in the Forgotten Realms universe, it is said to be the first instance of a mortal possessing the willpower to sacrifice their own body for such a feat of power. Having achieved undeath, Vecna would amass followers and powers to spread his influence across the world. One of these followers would become his most trusted lieutenant, the paladin Cass. Vecna with his allies would conquer much land, eventually creating his occluded empire. For his loyalty, Vecna would reward Cass by using his great necromantic magic to transform him into a vampire, and forging the legendary Sword of Cass as an instrument of his bidding. Unbeknownst to Vecna, the sword would be bestowed with an essence of his evil, making it sentient and seducing Cass into betraying his master. You see, after achieving lichdom, Vecna still had fears of his mortality. He then devised a horrifying solution, a grand ritual in which he would ascend to godhood. As Vecna was initiating this ritual, he would be betrayed by Cass. A battle would erupt between the two. In the process, Cass would cut off the lich's hand and plunge his sword deep into his eye. Vecna would banish Cass to a far realm, but a large explosion would ring out from his tower, the only physical traces that would remain of Vecna being his hand and his eye, which would be imbued with his power, becoming some of the most legendary items in all of D&D. While his body was destroyed, the lich's spirit endured, and again began gathering power to his cult, corrupting mortals through his whispers. After several centuries, Vecna would amass a significant enough following to reach the status of demigod. However, he would be defeated and banished to his realm of Cavitus before he could achieve full godhood. Vecna's origin in the Critical Role universe mirrors much of the same as in the Forgotten Realm universe, but with some significant differences for sure. Vecna would be born a talented human mage in the Age of Arcanum. He would amass power across his mortal life. At some point, he would become obsessed with his own mortality. Around 100 years before the events of the Calamity, a great war between gods and mortals, Vecna would achieve lichdom. Using his necromantic powers, he would amass an undead army as well as a large group of cultist followers. With them, he would disperse into the Shadowfell, conquering the city of Tharamfala, which would then serve as his base. From here, he would continue to grow his power and launch attacks on the material world by opening portals for his followers. Does that sound familiar at all? One such of these followers would be the warrior Cass, who Vecna bestowed the right of vampirism on, and using a portion of Cass's consciousness created a legendary blade, which would be known as the Sword of Cass. Vecna's true goal, however, was to achieve godhood and enact the ritual of seeding, a forbidden ritual used by the goddess the Raven Queen to destroy the former god of death and take its place. After much time and planning, Vecna would enact this ritual atop this tower of Entropis. There he would be stopped by his lieutenant Cass, both being destroyed in the process. All that would remain of Vecna would be his hand and his eye. His spirit, though, would linger on, along with his loyal following. Over many years, these followers would grow, many worshipping the Lich as a lesser deity or a patron saint of secrets, and thus this belief granted him the powers of a demigod. 800 years post-Calamity, Vecna would take a vested interest in an affluential couple called the Briarwoods. One day, Silas Briarwood would become ill. His wife Delilah, even with all her magical talent, would be unable to cure him. However, even though she would succeed in this mission, once she returned home, it was too late. Silas would lie dead in his bed. Vecna would whisper to Delilah, offering her an answer: the rites of vampirism. Vecna would use a fraction of his own power to enable these rites, binding Silas to him. Silas would rise a full vampire, and thus the couple would become his servants. Years later, the couple would be forced to flee their homeland, targeting an isolated mountain city called Whitestone. They would build a relationship with the nobles of the city, the DeRollo family. Until the time was right, they would strike, enacting a coup and claiming the city. This was all to Vecna's plan, as beneath the city lay a structure known as the Ziggurat, a former temple to the goddess of Ioun. Here, the Briarwoods would do Vecna's bidding, sowing the seeds for an eventual ritual that would take place. A ritual that Delilah believed was stopped by the adventuring troupe Vox Machina. However, unbeknownst to her, it had actually succeeded, triggering the siphon of magic energy needed for Vecna to again attempt to perform the ritual of seeding. Vox Machina would believe they had killed the Briarwood couple. Delilah, however, would manage to survive, being one of the most powerful necromancers alive at the time, and continued working for Vecna in secret. Vox Machina would discover this secret too late, however, finding Lady Delilah activating another siphon at a second ziggurat. These siphons were transferring magic and energy to Vecna's tower of Entropis in the Shadowfell. The party would pursue Delilah into the Shadowfell, but it was too late. The ritual of seeding would finish, Vecna ascending to godhood and transforming his followers to the material plane. Here, over the holy city of Vasselheim, Vox Machina would battle the avatar of the god Vecna. They would manage to bind the god with a set of magical items known as the Divine Trammels, banishing the god from the material plane, sealing him away. When examining all of this, you can see some really cool themes playing out in the newest season of Stranger Things. You see, Vecna is a high-level mage with the ability to open portals so that his minions could travel through to another world, to our world, to attack us. Like in the show, Vecna was once a normal human being, a normal mortal, whose physical body was corrupted into a lich, granting him vast powers. We see the kind of thematic play here in Stranger Things as well, as this is kind of what happens to one. As well, Vecna in D&D, like Vecna in Stranger Things, travels to another world, a parallel world, a planar world to ours. This is like the Upside Down, basically, in Stranger Things, what would be the Shadowfell in D&D. Obviously, there's a bunch of major differences between Vecna in Stranger Things as well as the Vecna in Critical Role or Forgotten Realms lore, but you can see a lot of the thematic similarities at play here. I love that they make these cool references for nerdy D&D fans like me. I mean, this is kind of what Stranger Things has become famous for, but in this one specifically with Vecna, it really feels like they kind of went out of their way. As well, a bunch of fans think that the story of Vecna in D&D could be used to predict a lot of how the story of Vecna in Stranger Things could play out. A lot of people bear similarities between the character Eddie and the character Cass from D&D lore, and think that Eddie will possibly redeem himself, being the Cass-like figure that ultimately defeats Vecna. But who knows? That's all speculation. And I hope that answers the question on just who is Vecna the Whispered One. Easily one of the most well-recognized big baddies in all of D&D, even before Stranger Things was out. If you play D&D, you know who Vecna is, you know what the Eye of Vecna is, you know what the Hand of Vecna is, or at least you have some kind of broad idea. But it's really cool seeing Stranger Things bring this really, really cool story of a bad guy, one that wanted to live so badly that they ascended to godhood, into the story of Stranger Things. Super cool that they took the time to get a lot of the themes right and meld them. Easily one of the most infamous bad guys in all of D&D, even before Stranger Things, but now thanks to Elle and the game, Vecna has become quite the household name. As always, if you enjoyed the video or learned something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We do a lot of different forms of media breakdowns here on this channel, from anime to D&D, D&D campaigns, and all sorts of other projects we have planned in the future, so keep your guys' eyes out for that. As always, I hope to see you all in the next one. Stay safe out there. Peace, love. Adu.